All right. Pace Invaders. Pace Invaders. You know what that's a reference to?
Space.
They're very good. That a boy. 18 still knows what's what. Right. So Pace Invaders. That was me, my subconscious, just trying to decide a cool name for this talk. The talk's framework actually was born after I decided on the title. I did know what I wanted to convey, but all this stuff just came out naturally. So, Pace Invaders is a reference to, or it's specifically describing those things that slow you down on mission. So if there is a natural pace, it's the pace that we, given everything that we are, every skill or capability that we have, it's the pace at which we're moving. There is an accelerated pace, which would be faster than our natural pace. There's a maximum pace, which is if everything in terms of our potential was brought to fruition, the pace at which we'd be moving. And then there on the other end is the irreducible pace, right? It's like if it takes 6 months to grow a vegetable, you're not doing it in 5 months, right? There's some paces that are just irreducible. So what I'm looking at here are things that will get in the way of your natural pace maximizing itself. So if we're trying to be as efficient as possible, not necessarily faster. So when I say a pace, the context that we're using is that we're still on mission. We're still following us. The pace is still sustainable, in other words. But we don't want to waste time. We don't want to go slower than we're capable of going, right? And these things are all influences that do just that, things that slow us down, right? So PACE, the acronym, people, actions, conditions, and emotional identities, right? I was debating whether I should call it identities and make up a word. That would have been cool, right? Maybe I just did. But emotional identities is what I'm writing down. So let's start off with people. Anchors is the first archetype of person that is a pace invader. And an anchor describes those people that no matter where you try to go, they're not going with you. They want to stay attached to you, but they also, whether with intent or not, want to keep you in the same place, right? And it could be a great person in terms of their morality, their devotion to you, their loyalty to you, but the way that their relationship with their identity in their life is, they cannot keep up with your pace. So just like a ship that has an anchor that's rooted in the ground, an anchor in your life is somebody that they don't know how to move, but they really want to stay connected to you, and they will slow down your pace, right? Now, how do we deal with anchors? We cut them off. That's the way that happens. If you cannot raise an anchor off the sea floor, you cut it off. So sure, these people that are in your life that you would consider to be anchors, set the criteria for them to be able to keep up with your pace, or at least not impede it. And sometimes that's, hey, we meet every day for lunch. How about we meet once a week? Or how about instead of meeting for lunch, I'll meet you at the gym? Or we find a way to stay functional in this alliance without allowing them to continue to provide themselves as an anchor to our pace, right? And the approach to our movement. Next, energy vampires. Some people are fucking miserable, and it's not your fault, nor is it your job to make them not miserable, right? I'm an individual that it's very difficult for me to hang out with a mope. Somebody who's just like, like it is something that I cannot unsee. I can't coexist with and ignore. I have to ask them about it. I have to get in their face about it, and it winds up sapping energy out of me, right? And with energy vampires, again, there isn't necessarily intent in how these people affect you negatively, how they affect your pace negatively. They don't have to be doing it on purpose. Sometimes you just have people that have formulas that take more energy to be connected to than you're willing to invest, right? And where they rear their heads, most frequently, I would say, are the mopes, the pessimists, the people who are always glass half empty type of people. People who it's, you sort of like, you got to get them up to a functional state before you're able to do anything with them. And these are the people that they show up at 80%, you always have to show up at 120, right? And that's how they just wind up costing you more than they should, really. And whether or not you pay it or you have it to pay is irrelevant. What we designate them, though, is a pace invader. They're still going to slow your pace down, right? So sure, you can make a decision to keep these types of people connected to you. And to me, that's on you. That's a preference. All I'm saying is understand that they are sapping your energy, right? Cardboard warriors. Cardboard warriors are almost like a sort of opposite of anchors. A cardboard warrior is the person that says he's down, that is about it. Wherever you're going, I'm going, let's go. But he doesn't do the work necessary to actually sustain himself in the pace that you expect him to keep. So he's basically the guy that talks shit and doesn't do the work to get any better. He's the guy that says, you say, yeah, I'm going to build a shed. And he goes, oh, I'll help you build a shed. Yeah, let's go build a shed. You start building a shed and you realize he's more clueless than you are. Maybe that's a little personal story from my perspective. Some of you guys might know how to build a shed. I don't. But if somebody said, yeah, let's go build a shed, and then I go show up to work and I realize he doesn't know what he's talking about, he wound up talking a lot of shit. But when it comes down to it, he's not about it. Right? So you'll have individuals that they don't want to say they can't do something. They don't want to say they're not down for something. And they're not willing to sort of make a stand for what their preferences are in your alliance. But the way that it comes off to you is you think that you have a warrior at your side. Then you realize the first bit of conflict you guys see, he's made out of cardboard. Right? Let's go to actions now. So if we're talking about things that slow down our natural pace while we're trying to maximize it and becoming more efficient, these are people. Now let's talk about sort of behaviors and actions that are connected to that effect. Candy flavored vitamins. Have you guys ever had like vitamin gummies? Yes. I have them and they taste great, and I eat them more than I need vitamins. Right? So sometimes what we'll do to slow down our pace is we'll take something that is actually a good thing, but it's so enjoyable, we do it more than we're supposed to be doing it. Right? And I'll call those things candy flavored vitamins. It's like you need this thing, but you enjoy it so much you disproportionately participate in it. And you wind up slowing down your pace as a result. Right? Somebody who, if we say, hey, in order to be healthy, you have to work out every day. You have to move every day. It doesn't have to be something extravagant. And then somebody takes that to heart. Next thing you know, they're working out 8 hours a day because they really enjoy it. And they're like, hey, you're right. I'm so glad you told me about this. But now they're taking away time and energy and resources from the other things in their life they need to do. Right? So just because we enjoy something, there is a point where it's like, okay, that's enough. And a lot of times we wind up installing it in our lives because we were deficient in what it provides. But if we're not tracking the sort of big picture and the context in which we're using this, sometimes we can fall in love with a thing and now use it to the point where it slows down our pace or winds up making us deficient in other things as a result. Right? So, call that candy flavored vitamins. Rope ladder aversion, right? So think of a rope ladder. Have you guys ever gone to like a carnival or something? There's literally like that game where you got to like try and climb up the rope ladder. I wanted to be a ninja since I'm 6, so at some point I had like the whole grappling hook with rope ladder thing. And rope ladders are a pain in the ass to climb when compared to a wooden or metal ladder. People who have an aversion to rope ladders, though, they need a certain amount of control before they do what's necessary to grow. So people who have a rope ladder aversion are people who don't want to climb unless they have more control than they need. If I have a rope ladder that goes from the ground to a roof 30 feet in the air, I could climb the rope ladder and get to the roof, but some people will say, nope, I don't want it to move. Rope ladder's wiggling all over the place. I don't want it to do that. So what winds up happening is they conflate the ability to get to that landing with the stability of the ladder itself. So they're the person that says, I don't want to take that risk because there's too many unknowns. There are too many, vulnerabilities. There are too many things out there. So what winds up happening is you have somebody who refuses to grow because he doesn't have the control necessary to placate his insecurities. He has enough control to grow, in other words. The rope ladder will get you to the landing. But what he wants is a level of stability that doesn't give him any more growth than he would have otherwise. Right? Does that make sense? So, sad songs. Next one. Sad songs. On sad songs, you have an individual who is basically not necessarily a negative person. Could be. A lot of times there's certainly some overlap between these two. But somebody who writes sad songs is somebody who makes the worst narrative possible out of the situation he finds himself in. So he sees a set of circumstances. He sees this thing play itself out, and he has the worst take on it out of everybody. He has the worst story, the worst, support of, what can I do to change this? Where is my control? Where is the mission to be found in all of this? Somebody who is on the opposite side of this is somebody who writes happy songs, where it's like, hey, at least we have our health. Hey, at least we're healthy. At least, going through money problems. Hey, at least we're 100% healthy. Oh, we got our car stolen. Hey, at least we could afford, at least we have car insurance. Like, he's the guy the guy that writes the happy songs that has the best take on it. The guy that writes the sad songs is the guy that usually faces some sort of conflict with some sort of reaction like, why does this always happen to me? I can't seem to win. Why would they do this to me? Who out of the group didn't show up to the training yesterday, right? It's like, you don't want to ask questions whose answers don't make you stronger. You don't want to tell stories who, if you find yourself a character in it, doesn't lead you to a happier place and a happier outcome. So what are some of the actions that we as individuals can do to get in our own way and sabotage our pace? We write the sad songs. Yeah, well, this thing happened. It's like, shut the fuck up. Because there's always a happy song to be written with the same information. Sometimes, though, when we're used to writing sad songs, that's the only way we know how to get through something. So sometimes people need to cry their way through a problem, right? And I've said years ago as a phrase that I put out, I've never seen a tear replace a hammer on a job site. You can cry about shit all day long, but then you have to be finished, and then you have to pick up the tools necessary to do the work, right? So I want the story that tells me to pick up the tool first. And the more you do that, and the more you train yourself to do that, the less you'll need to go through the process that sad songs bring you through, right? Let's move on over to conditions. So conditions are things that exist outside of us that are almost like, environment type of truths that we have to follow and build a productive relationship with. Again, the context of me bringing these up is how do we maintain as productive and efficient a pace as possible. Number one, the in and out dynamic. You guys have heard in a business context, working in your business as opposed to on your business, right? And the way we could sort of draw a bridge from that business application to a more general philosophy is, what is going on in your life in terms of your mission and what's happening today? Sometimes something will happen today, and a good example of this, we were talking about this yesterday, haters. Haters ain't got enough going on. How do you know that? Because they got time to hate on people. Right? If you got a bunch of shit to do, you don't have time to invest in hating on somebody, to have even an opinion or an emotional attachment to the outcomes of somebody else's life. That only happens if you have the bandwidth empty to fill it with that nonsense. So we could work in our lives and be stuck moment to moment, like an animal looking to survive moment to moment, day to day. Or it could be somebody who understands how to design our days in the context of where we're trying to get mission-wise. So we don't want to live in our life. Sometimes we want to sort of live and work on our lives. And that provides the context where we don't wind up slowing our pace down because of the distractions that are going on. I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie Whiplash, right? Yes. Great movie. There's a point where the main character, Miles Teller character, his character, what was the name of it? You know the name of the guy? What was it? Neiman. Neiman gets into a car accident, and he has to go and do this performance. And he's obsessed with doing this performance and showing up, so he keeps his spot as the first drummer, whatever it was in the group. He gets to an accident, he gets out, grabs his sticks, and starts running. He didn't have time for dealing with that shit. That was the amount of focus. Now, probably not the most productive example, but certainly an example of somebody who was not letting the moment touch the big picture. Like, no, I got to do this thing. I don't care what's going on right now. As opposed to the people who, they get tapped on the highway and they're like, put the car in park. They're like, oh, my back, my neck, nothing. They got nothing going on. They got nowhere to be. Like, oh, guess I'm doing this today. And when we have the dynamic of the day is going to tell me who I am and what I'm supposed to do, we're not moving at the fastest pace we could muster, right? Winter and summer. Now, I'll be the first one to say a lot of the stuff that I have on this dynamic is directly from Jim Rohn. And you want to hear a master talk about this concept, I would suggest you go in and research that because he is the guy. But one of the things that I would share here in the context of keeping our pace as quickly as possible, as productive as possible, is understand two basic things. When it's summertime, you have to prepare for the winter. The problem with summertime is sometimes we forget that the winter is going to follow. We don't prepare for the winter. And then the winter shows up and we start writing sad songs. I can't believe this is happening. Oh, everything used to be so great. There's a story, and I've shared this with you guys before, where a guy in, I think it was 2006 or 2007, showed up at my academy and tried to sell me Yellow Page ads. And I had to explain to him, like, dude, nobody's using that anymore. Like, there's the internet. You should probably sell other stuff. And he was pushing back. No, this is great. He had his whole shtick. At some point, he just broke down and was like, yeah, man, I know. I got stuck doing this way longer than I should have. And because at one point, I guarantee he was killing it. He was crushing it, selling those ads. He wasn't paying attention to the seasons of the market, though. And he found himself in winter with his summer outfit on. Going, why is it so cold today? I'm ready to go to the beach again. It's like, no, we have to sort of be grateful for the summers when they show up. But part of our obligation is preparing for the winter, right? And when we're in the winter, we have to understand now's the time to get past this phase till the next summer. Because there's always going to be a summer. I could just as easily said night and day here and use that, metaphor for it. But it doesn't matter how cold the winter get, spring's sure to follow. And that's the thing that we always have to remind ourselves. It keeps us positive and productive in the winter, and it keeps us responsible and accountable in the summer. Right? You don't want to party all summer long and you didn't ever prepare for winter. Right? Evolution and erosion. I actually could have written evolution versus erosion, but whatever. Evolution is, if we think about it, the way it's presented in science is basically the changes that occur through just these adaptive behaviors, right, and developments in certain species when they're engaging their environment, right, their ecosystems. Some animals this generation are a little bit taller than the other ones. The taller ones survive a little bit more than the shorter ones do. So the species tends to be propagated more effectively by the taller ones in that particular case. And the whole species winds up getting taller over, like there are all these changes that happen that are based on a species relationship or an organism's relationship with its environment. If we don't evolve, we will erode. Right? That's this in a nutshell. Too many times we act like we're losing something when we experience what I would call erosion, because we have not proactively looked at the change as an evolution. Right? So there was a time where in the martial arts school, in my jungle gym, I was crushing it. And I was telling myself, my systems are incredible. I'm crushing it, almost by accident. Doing things that other people are saying is just wrong. And I'm like, oh yeah? Look at all these things. Look at all the success I have. One of the things I didn't really consider enough at the time was I was the only martial of the MMA school in the Bronx. So it's like, yeah, I got a lot of people that given a little bit more or given a different environment, I wouldn't have gotten. So at some point, I had to learn how to actually do the systems to maximize what the ecosystem had in terms of potential. But when I saw that change starting to occur, I realized that I needed to evolve. I never started writing the sad song again about, oh yeah, it's just not how it used to be and everything's changing. You'll hear people say, oh yeah, it's the market. It's it's the interest. Everybody's starving now. Don't ever talk like that in front of me. You can talk like that all you fucking want. But I'm never going to let that go. Yeah, it's, it's just the market right now. It sucks. It's like, is anybody making money in the market right now? Yeah. So you're just not one of them. So does the market suck or do you suck? It sounds like the market is just currently at a point where if you suck, you don't make money. So don't suck. Because if somebody says they're making money right now, it kills the whole narrative, the sad song of, yeah, everyone's starving. No, you got a lot of people who, and I would use myself as an example with the martial arts school. When my business started taking a dip, I had to go, what the fuck is going on? I had to organize these things. I had to create better systems, better marketing systems, better internal systems, better retention systems, better upgrade systems. I had to do all these different things. That was my response to recognizing that the environment was changing or my outcome was changing. So I couldn't just say, it's just the market. Everybody's suffering now. And there are still people that they want to even acknowledge to their own detriment. I don't care what anybody says. The market's just fucked up. It's like, okay, but what's the outcome or what's the value of putting that in your head? Is somebody making money? It's like, it's a sad song, no matter how you look at it. It's like, why say it out loud? And it's like there are plenty of other things that we could talk about that are absolutely factual, but don't do anything for us. It's like, we're all going to die eventually. He'll probably live the longest, 18-year-old motherfucker. There's a point where he's going to have to see everybody die. There's a point where, what the fuck are we talking about? What's the value of that? Well, sometimes the environment of your life changes and you wind up start that narrative and build a relationship with that narrative, and you lose time that you could be using to evolve. So sometimes, remember, we're talking about pace. You slow yourself down because you waste time with some sad song about how everything that used to be there is no longer there. You can find let's say a lake or a river that has great fishing, but doesn't have great fishing in the middle of the winter. It's still a lake or a river that has great fishing. But what's sort of understood is that, well, obviously not now. But that context is understood by people who know that context. Whereas other people were like, I thought you said there was great fishing. Fishing sucks. I was there all week. Well, nobody said to go in the middle of the fucking winter, you idiot. But that doesn't dawn on them. So a lot of times when an environment, an ecosystem, the environment of our lives changes, and it can be interpreted as erosion, if we have the proper context, we'll always be able to evolve. Right? When I went over the 9-flow system yesterday, it's like part of this is paying attention to what new offers are born out of the ones that you're already establishing, because the market might change. And that's fine. It's okay. You've got to expect it to change. Of course it's going to change. Think about right now at this point, 2024, how many people or how many businesses were built on transcribing videos. Send me your video, pay me, and I will transcribe. It's $5 a minute, $2 a minute, whatever it is. And they'll have somebody listen and type. And they'll make sure it's organized. Those people are done unless they evolved. Because that business is done. That's just an add-on feature to some AI program now. Like there's auto captions that are better than some of those services were 10 years ago. But if you're the guy that was talking about it, now mind you, if you were the first guy to do that, you were killing it. I don't have to look at my own video. It's somebody that has some sweatshop somewhere with a bunch of people that are just listening to videos and typing, because prior to AI, you had to manually do that. But if you wanted that done, you were killing it if you were able to put up a business to do that for people. Because everybody wanted that for certain reasons, or for different reasons, but nobody wanted to do it on their own. Certainly not at scale. Right? One of the things like in the info marketing world, it's like, yeah, you make a bunch of videos, and one of the add-on bonuses is the transcripts. So people could read the videos. You paid a transcription service to do that. That was my first introduction to that in 2010, 2011. Now those businesses, they're done, or they're doing something else. They've evolved. They're on their 6th iterative generation of business model since then, because the market changed, and the smart ones always do, right? How many dollar stores still sell everything for $1? None. It's like the spirit of $1. It's dollar-ish. It's $1 somewhere, just not in this country, But there was a point where dollar stores, everything was for $1. That was the gimmick. They would not be in business. Nobody's shopping at a $5 store. It doesn't have the same ring to it, right? $5 General. Nobody's going there, right? So these things have to evolve if you're going to survive. So last category here, emotional identities or identities, right? I like that. I decided to include 3 because I think these cover the gamut. Victim, idiot, and loser. Let's talk about why these are things that'll slow you down. Well, when you're a victim, you are responding to not only the real sort of oppositional forces that you have to deal with, but also the imaginary ones. On top of that, not only responding to imaginary threats, you're also now exposing yourself to the timeline of the catharsis of getting over this sad song that you're following, right? This narrative, this bad story you're telling yourself, right? So being a victim, and I'm certainly preaching to the choir here. None of you guys in this room do not understand the liability of being a victim. But in the context of how it relates to your pace, it just gives you more to do. It's like the person who is in the woods who snaps let's talk about the movie. The guy whose arm was stuck in the rock. It's like at some point, he realized if he didn't chop his arm off, he was going to die. Well, here's the thing, and he's said as much, and you realize that if you watch the movie, obviously based on a real story, he should have just chopped his arm off from the first day. Because the only way he was getting out of there was cutting his arm off. But he wasted, 3 days or something, 127 hours actually, in that predicament. Should have just did it. Now, I'm not saying that he was being a victim by any means, but what victims do is they add time to inevitable solutions. It's like, just do the solution. No, but I can't believe this happened to me. I want to talk about that for a couple of minutes. It's like there's no utility in that. But it's going to make me feel better. But the only reason you need to feel better is because you keep doing this. So every time something happens, it's like you feel something that you have to now process to feel better from. If you just act from the beginning, it's done. It's like pulling off a Band-Aid. Do it quick. Right? So victim's never going to hurt. Idiot. Now here's the thing about being an idiot. You might not know you're an idiot, right? So being an idiot is sort of like, or not being an idiot, I should say, is one of those things where you might not actually know it's working, but you sort of cover the bases anyway. When I say don't be an idiot so you could maintain as maximal a pace as you can, what I'm saying is you should constantly be becoming more valuable. You should constantly be increasing your capabilities. It's like if you're a business owner for 10 years, let's just say, and you still don't know how to answer a phone properly. You still don't know how to design a basic ad properly. You still don't know how to have a pricing structure that makes sense to the economics of your business. It's like you're an idiot. Idiots deserve to lose, by the way. Why? Because it rewards people who work to not be idiots. The world's a better place if people are investing in themselves. Right? We're more capable when we invest in ourselves. Idiots are people who are just okay getting shit wrong forever. And they just wind up getting a connection of people that basically take care of them. Right? Or they find a bunch of other idiots and they form a little idiot village, right? A little idiot fucking activities, and that's the thing. Or they become the smartest idiot, right? Which is like the tallest midget, right? Just as fucking useless, right? You don't want to be an idiot at all. You don't want to be the best one, right? Doesn't make any sense. But there will be people who will accept the slower pace on an individual scale because when they compare themselves to the people they're around, they're the one who's the most capable. Right? And yeah, you're now the smartest idiot, right? In jiu-jitsu, when people talk about world champion white belts, oh yeah, this guy, he's a white belt world champion. I'm like, you're not even a blue belt. Like, shut the fuck up. Blue belt world champion. You're not even a purple belt. To me, black belt's the only thing that mattered. But you have people who will settle on this thing. What was it? Married with Children. Al Bundy. 4 touchdowns, poke high. You don't want to be the guy that fucking peaked in high school. You don't want to be the guy that peaked at whatever your current age is. Like life should be this. And up here you die. That's how it should be. It's like, oh man, this guy was in the NFL, and then started smacking his wife around, drinking and doing drugs. And next thing you know, he killed somebody at a comic convention, and hung himself in jail down here. Like over here, he was an all-star football player, or stabbed his ex-wife and her boyfriend, and then used to be an airplane, and you can go a different route with that, right? You don't want to be a guy that peaked, sometime before the last chapter of your life. Like, what the fuck are you doing, right? So last thing, loser. What is a loser in the context of this talk? It's somebody who is okay not trying to win. And when I say win, it is not competition against other people necessarily. In the real world, at certain scales, that is inevitable. That is going to occur. But the people who are the greatest competitors in whatever application that is are people who have always competed against themselves, first and foremost. I am going to be better than I was. They're hard on themselves. They have standards that it's difficult for them to reach every single day. And one of the things when you have that type of outlook on who you are and how you conduct yourself, your personal standards, one of the things you make sure of is that you're never okay being a loser. Right? The cliche thing is, well, you're either winning or you're learning. It's like, well, if you're not paying attention when you're not winning, you're losing. It's like it's okay to say you're losing. Sometimes when you lose, you learn. And if you're learning when you're losing, then you're not identifying yourself as a loser. Sometimes you have to take an L. right? But somebody who has a philosophy that's okay with losing, somebody who has a philosophy that is almost designed to create losses, that is the identity of a loser, right? It's the person who tells himself, well, I'm not going to win, or I'd never win these things, and maybe it's bolstered by the sad song on top of it and the story that goes along with it. This isn't for me. It's like, shut the fuck up. Try, right? Whenever you see somebody, I've used this example before, you see somebody cry after like losing a fight or even a sport competition. It's not that they're weak, they're soft, especially if we're talking about some elite, like world level, type world class competition. Like they wouldn't be there if they were that person. They're crying because their whole reality is now a surprise to them. They didn't think this was possible. That was the belief, the complete belief they brought themselves to in preparation for this contest. There's no way I'm going to lose. So then when they lose, they don't immediately know how to process it because their reality is now different. And those people are not losers because they don't even know who they are when they lose. That's how much they don't identify as a loser. That their very reality almost presumes they're going to win every single time. That every single time you lose, you're surprised. Like, how did this happen? I thought this was impossible. And sometimes it triggers a lot of emotions in people because they realize they have to acknowledge that they didn't win when they thought there was no way they could lose, right? So people, actions, conditions, and emotional identities or identities. Those are the pace invaders. Any questions on this stuff?
No, I like what you said about the rope ladder. It's like usually, I think the first rung on a ladder is a part of the rope ladder.
That's right.
You start getting used to climbing.
That's right. And that's a good point too. Like being on the rope ladder, it feels terrible until you get really good at climbing rope ladders. And then you can climb a rope ladder as fast as a guy can climb a regular ladder. And it's really a control thing that I've seen, especially working with a lot of men when it comes to entrepreneurship and their businesses. Sometimes they have this whole story that really can be boiled down to they're just scared to try right now. They're just scared. Oh, I just got to, right now the interest rates aren't right. Right now, I have a guy who I work with who has a second house that he wants to sell. And he's like, it's like what I'm going to get for it now. It's like you're just not ready to burn your boats. He's made a couple of life decisions and it's like sell that house. I'm a little bit of a cowboy with shit like this is concerned. Like I'm going to sell it. I don't care if it's a loss because you're just tracking winning and losing by the dollar amount that's trying. What you're not accounting for is your time and aggravation and stress dealing with this thing. Like there's a cost to that. I don't know how to separate that cost from anything that I do. I can't reduce anything in my life to just money because it's not just money. There's money I don't make because of the freedom I get not pursuing that money. I'm spending time with my kids where other people would be making more money. I could always make more money than I make, but not without affecting the rest of my life. And I value that more than money, right? So there's always that balance. So sometimes when people are risk averse, they'll come up with the story about why this is not a safe enough plan. And it's like, imagine somebody standing on the fucking bow of the Titanic and it's getting ready to sink. And people are going, jump. And they're going, if I jump in that water, I'll get hypothermia. It's like, you have no idea what's happening right now, because they're so tunnel vision. They're trying to control something. There is no control. It's like you choose the option where you have the most relative control, or you choose the option that has the least relative risk. But there's always going to be a lack of control and risk in growth and movement, right?
Is there a difference in that case? Is there a difference between fear and comfort, or is that even worth distinguishing? Is the same?
Is there a difference between fear and comfort in terms of making a move? Well, I think that what happens with comfort is it'll make you more vulnerable. It'll make you more fragile. The more comfortable our lives are, and I'm a relatively hard guy compared to men in society these days, but there are plenty of people that put me to shame, where that metric is concerned. And I could almost correlate directly the level of comfort that I'm used to and the level of comfort they're used to. Not that they don't have access to that comfort, but the way they live their lives isn't connected to that. Just the guy that wakes up every day and cuts down trees all day long. That's a hard life. And hard dudes live that life, but I have a certain level of comfort. So I would say there's a vulnerability that comes with being comfortable that can lead to fear in the face of risk, And there are some people who are vulnerable but don't have the fear. And sometimes they're their own undoing. That sometimes they wind up being the cardboard warriors. They don't realize how just vulnerable they are. And they just pretend that, I could do anything without the accountability of actually preparing themselves to do so. Because that's, I'll do it. Like we both know people who are like, fuck it, I'll do it. I don't give a fuck. I'll do, and then it doesn't work out. And it's like, what are you going to do? And well, you could have prepared for this. I'm going to win this fight because I'm not a pussy. It's like, well, it helps if you're not a pussy, but you also have to be better at fighting than the other guy. Like, not being a pussy is part of it, but you also got to learn to fight. So there's always this real world accountability that we have to subject ourselves to, and if we're preparing ourselves properly, then there's a reason why the billionaires go on they're hiking Kilimanjaro, and that's a thing. I don't know if you know, right? Like they're doing all these things where the average person is going, why would they do that? They don't want to lose their edge. They know that comfort is a killer, and they become more vulnerable when that is. Because now you wind up being the person who is beholden to the circumstances that you've become addicted to, right? I talk about, my buddy all those years ago was complaining about a job, and I told him to quit. I can't quit. Why not? Because I got to pay the rent. I got to pay my car note. I got a kid in school. I got to do all these different things. So it's like, so this job provides for all that. Yeah, so you should be grateful for the job. Well, the other side of that is, if you didn't like this job, why'd you allow your life to bloat to a point where only the job could support it? Because if you didn't have a life that needed the